My first job in film was working as a messenger for a post-production house. I got fired for splicing a very important print together in the wrong order for a big screening. So I was driving a cab, and I kept looking for jobs in the film business.
I had decided to make this little documentary film called Together. And we had started to shoot this 16mm footage, and we needed to get it sunk up. We needed an assistant editor.
And I kind of stepped into the gap, and Sean and I finished the film. Thus, we were very close friends at the end of it. And he was approached by these same gentlemen, I think the company was Cinema 77, to make a scary movie.
To avoid fainting, keep repeating to yourself, it's only a movie.
I haven't, over a long career, maybe 30, 35 years, been able to totally differentiate where one's own inner self ends and one's reflection of the outer world begins, you know. And I was probably angry coming out of fundamentalism. I have no doubts about that because it was very restrictive. I wasn't allowed to see films until I got out of college. I finally just started going once I was a young adult, but you know, grew up very rigidly, no dancing, no smoking, no card playing, no movies. So I'm sure there was a certain amount of rage with that. It was the time of Vietnam. There was a tremendous amount of very, very shocking footage coming out of Vietnam, especially the people that were anti-war, and I was, you know, I was. So I felt very angry and repulsed at the violence from there. And I also felt like American cinema did not show violence as I was seeing it in this footage, you know, which was ugly and it was sadistic, and there were sexual overtones, and there was no good guys and bad guys.
Wes and I went out to see one of the Man with No Name Clint Eastwood movies. That was like Bang Bang You're Dead, but it really didn't have to do with people dying or any of the real horror that would be attached to people dying. And we said, you know, if you could ever make a movie in which you thought somebody really died, it would be just dramatically different and strong, and it wouldn't have to be this big, overproduced numbing of the sensibilities.
I had always admired Virgin Springs, so I took that basic premise of a wealthy family, a father and mother living kind of in comfort and having a very middle-class child. The daughter goes off with a sort of very roughshod girl and are attacked by sort of rogue shepherds that are out in the woods and raped and then murdered. And then the shepherds take shelter in the house of the parents because there's a storm, and the parents in the middle of the night discover the bloody clothes of their daughter, realize what's happened, and set about to murder all the shepherds. I always thought that was a fabulous, bare-bones story and a great sort of switching of how people that are peaceful can become, you know, violent, and how the violent, sometimes you can start to feel a strange sympathy for them when you see that they're terrified and in way over their heads. So sort of took that, and I think I wrote it in a long weekend on Long Island. The first indication I had that it was powerful was, in those days you had to have your scripts typed up by people on mimeograph machines. This gives you an idea how long ago it was. And we had problems getting it back, and finally Sean went over there and said, what's taking you so long? And they said, we're so sorry, but everybody is like reading every page as it comes out off of the typist, and this script is amazing. It's like horrifying. And I kind of just had that sense that I've had a couple times in my career that this is something that people are going to talk about, and it's going to have huge impact. So we sent it off to the boys in Boston. They really liked it, and they gave us a budget. I think Sean and I thought we could do it for $50,000. Sean's idea was that we could actually do it for 40. We'd pocket the 10 and be rich, you know, 5,000 each. And instead, the producers there, or whoever you want to call them, they were really theater owners, mostly outdoor theater owners, gave us $90,000. So we were just, you know, fat and sassy.
Oh, Okay, yeah, sure, I'll tell you. Why not? I was an actor. I was a trained stage actor that just, the first time someone said to me, do you want to get laid in a movie and get paid? I said, whoa, yeah. It sounds kind of strange because at the time I was doing Broadway plays. But it appealed to me and I did it. I read for Sean for this movie and someone else got the part. And he said to me, I'll call you later, which he did. He called me later for what is now called Last House on the Left. Which was originally supposed to be a hardcore movie, but a disgusting hardcore movie. It was killing people and having sex with them. I mean, it was absolutely hideous.
The script certainly was much more sexual. The rapes were much more explicit, and the actors were committed to doing it. We were basically out to break every barrier.
I think the only other actress at the time we had was Lucy. Lucy came from X-rated movies. She was doing all this stuff to get back at her dad. We said, there's no way we're going to do this. This is ridiculous. I'm not going to have a sex with fake blood. That's insane. And
it was interesting because at a certain point the actors came to me and said, we think the story is good enough not to have this explicit sexuality. And I thought about it, I said, okay, you're right.
At the time I was very much anti-violence. But I thought, what the hell, I'll make some money and have some fun because it was friends. Lucy was my friend, the makeup girl was my friend. Jeremy Rain and I were the best of friends.
I got involved in Last House on the Left because of Fred, Perna Lincoln. And he sent me to West and Shawn. And they told me that I was too young and that the character was in her 40s and I was 21 years old. And I said, but I can be older, I can be anything. You know, when you're starving, you can be anything.
And we needed people that were willing to do the script, which in some ways prevented, any known actor from coming anywhere close to it.
I was in a play at the time, playing Susan Atkins, killing Sharon Tate every night off Broadway. And that's how I wound up getting this part, Sadie. So I kind of was doing killers and nurses. That was my entire career. And I guess the New York Times said I was a study in violence. So I don't know, somewhere within me, there's clearly someone who can play that.
These girls, want to buy some grass. Come on in.
It was pretty much straight ahead casting, except we went in areas that probably a lot of casting people didn't go into. I won't go into too much detail because I think certain things should be taken to one's grave.
And I read a couple scenes, and then when they weren't looking, I looked through and saw a couple other scenes, and it said that I cut some woman's breast off and ate it. And I remember saying, I can't do that. And they told me not to pay attention to the script. They weren't going to use any of those things.
I went downtown to Sean Cunningham's office, and they had this schleppy little office in I think it was in the 40s, right off of between 5th and 6th. And I went up there. The office was real, like dusty and dirty, and they had a Steenbeck on one side and chairs on the other. So I figured, when you're an out-of-work actor in New York, anyone willing to give you a job makes a good impression.
They offered Krug to me, and it was just an appointment, and I went up there, and I didn't want to chainsaw people. I wanted to do funny stuff, and I said, "Can I play the deputy?" And they said, "Sure." But I said, "I have the guy who can do the music for you and could play Krug." I said, "Let me go and come back. I'll bring you your Krug."
I was told by my sister's boyfriend, Marty Cove, that they were doing this film. And it was a horror film, and that I was dead on for the, for the lead role.
They wanted a guy as big as I was, and he wasn't as big.
what happened was that it was this hot day in the middle of August.
And I brought back David. I outfitted him in 5 different sweaters, full regalia sweaters, threw down the arms, one so I could build him up and make him look huge.
And my God, by the time we got past Central Park, I'm friggin' dying, man. All right. And I'm just, you know, I'm sweating. And so we got to 45th Street, and they were going to park the car. And I said, bullshit, you're parking the car. I jumped out of the car in the middle of the street and ran down the block because I'm dying here. And I run into the, you know, run up the stairs and run into the audition. And I say, all right, I'm here, goddammit. Now, what do you want me to do?
David Hess is a lunatic. David, you're a lunatic.
I'm David Hess. You asked me to come here. I mean, I'm just carrying on like a friggin' fool.
And he had this just incredible energy. He wanted to do this movie so badly.
I said, wait a minute, just wait a minute, you know. So I'm sitting in the office and I'm waiting for about 10 minutes. And they come out and they said, well, you got the role.
And I want you to blow your brains out.
I think it was Wes that said, oh, by the way, what do you do? And I said, well, I'm a musician. And he said, oh, yeah? I said, what about? So I gave him my resume in terms of being a musician. So he looks at me and says, well, would you like to do the music?
Oh, he's up in Junior, Sadie and crew, out for the day with the Collingwood brood, out for the day for some fresh air and sun. Let's have some fun with those 2 lovely children, then off them as soon as we're done.
The building we both were working in was full of cinema verite documentarian. Leacock Pennybaker, who did Monterey Pop and Don't Look Back, the Dylan biography. So that was kind of the style that we were used to.
Wes wanted to create a verite sense of reality, and he felt that if he shot it more like a newsreel, that it would have a certain credibility and a plausibility that we wouldn't be able to get with a sort of a more slick Hollywood style.
We got basically a documentary crew, a cinematographer named Victor Hurwitz who had his own camera, so we didn't have to rent a camera. And I think we had a crew of maybe 7.
We shot the New York scenes first, the city scenes, and then we moved up to Connecticut. So we spent a week in New York and I think 4 weeks in Connecticut.
Oh, it was a terribly difficult shoot. We had no idea what we were doing.
I'd never gone to film school, never read a book about making movies, knew nothing about screen direction, master shots, coverage, anything.
When you're a young actor and you're doing your first work, your first couple of jobs or whatever, there's no such thing as a bad shoot or a difficult shoot. The reason being you have nothing by which to judge it, and everything is a brand new experience.
The shoot in general, since it's the first movie I'd ever been in, it was easy.
You know, when you want to know how much it cost to make this movie was done in Sean's backyard, you know.
And what I remember is Mrs. Cunningham running around trying to figure out what her son was doing and why he had all his friends over at her house with all this equipment.
We didn't know what we didn't know. So consequently, nobody was there saying, you can't do that.
We just had the time of our lives. It was just wonderful.
Your adrenaline's running, you know, at such a peak level that no, I mean, you don't even have to eat. And we bonded on many different levels because to be able to work as a unit, you have to have some kind of a feeling for the other actors. And we were all, you know, this was a first attempt.
Why don't you just lay back and enjoy being inferior?
Zoom off, you male chauvinist dog.
Pig, Sam.
What?
Male chauvinist pig.
Fred Lincoln and Jeremy Rain were the other 2 members of our gang. Fred, I believe, had done a bunch of adult movies prior to this, so Fred had more experience in front of a camera than any of us.
Fred Lincoln became a friend, a professional friend of the family. He was a very nice guy. He was a moderating influence. He was very calm, and he had this wonderful wry sense of humor. He was a very good guy to have around.
Fred's a funny guy. I mean, I remember Fred only with good things. He talks like this. I remember how perfect he's like, David.
That was the first movie David had ever done. And we all used to sit together at night and figure out what we're going to do the next day, and we'd talk about it.
I met David Hess, and we're instant friends. Even though I figured this was a brute of a human being.
Hit her in the stomach with all your might.
Stop it! Stop it!
You're gonna kill someone if you're not careful. What the hell are you doing?
I thought Mark was like Woody Allen. I thought he was very funny. I actually thought he was going to go on and be famous. And I thought David had incredible power, incredible anger, which comes across. And I thought that Fred was so funny as Weasel Podolsky.
You guys ain't cows, is you? Little cows looking for some grass? Huh? Let me hear you move. Come on. Huh? Move.
I don't really think there was any weak links in the acting. I thought I bought everybody in the movie. And some of them had very little experience.
The actors involved created this perverse family unit that became part of Krug's company, as it were.
I think Wes's intent was to create like the anti-family, and to create, put the structures in there, the kind of normal structures of a mother, father, and a child and a relative, but then populate it with bizarre, decadent, murderous people.
I think they all did a really brilliant, intuitive job of acting that.
I never had a problem with the acting. I mean, that was easy to do. I was captain of my rugby team at that time. I had no problem with controlled violence. So I was able to bring that onto the screen.
David Hess, laid back, don't belong in the same sentence. David hasn't had a laid back moment in his entire life.
Piss your pants.
You want me to talk about my childhood? My childhood was one of being ignored. And what do you do when you left to your own volition as a child? You develop fantasies. So that was one thing that I could do very quickly. I could fantasize anything on a moment's notice. And that's essentially what I did with Krug. It was organic.
He's a pedal to the metal guy, and I love him.
David is a big, strong guy. He was, he was young and full of himself. And I think his version of acting at the time was to try to be the character in the moment.
Now, I don't want you girls to worry. I mean, we just wanted some company, that's all.
For instance, the rape scenes essentially said, we're going to shoot this 3 times. We're going to take it from beginning to end. And I'm going to put the camera in 3 different places, just as if I had 3 documentarian cameras at a real event. And then somehow I'll cut it together.
Sandra was your archetype, upper middle class Protestant, repressed Protestant, and how do you deal with that? How do you deal with it? Well, you try to find ways of stabbing her in her repression.
So when somebody is shaking you and threatening to rape you and carve his initials on your chest, and you're lying on the ground and this person is over you, it's kind of a terrifying, ugly place to be.
I scared the living shit out of her, man. She really thought I started to pull her pants down and grab her tits and everything, and I mean, she really, and I looked up at Wes at one point and I said, "Can I?" And then she freaked.
That I think she often wasn't acting. It was a film very much on the edge. Some of the people weren't even from the film business. We had no credentials. We were out in the middle of, we were literally climbing over fences into like the reservoir for Weston, Connecticut, I think. I hope they can't arrest us this many years later, but everything that we were doing, we didn't have any permits. I could see very easily that she would be afraid that suddenly this is just going to take a turn. I don't know, it's a snuff film or something. What am I doing out here with these people? Plus, David Hess very much played his character on and off around the set. He was very gruff, very threatening, didn't talk to her much. And I think Sandra really was afraid of him, and probably of Fred a bit too.
She actually left the night before we were going to shoot. And she was somebody that I knew from legitimate movies too. We had done things together. And I talked to her, I told her, "Tony, a movie, nobody's going to hurt you, but you want to know something?" She was afraid of me, she was afraid of David, and she was afraid of Jeremy the whole time we were shooting.
I'm sure they had a very, very bad time with it. And I didn't hang out with the girls. I never really got to know them. They probably hated me.
think she really got into this fear thing, because what you're seeing in her face is real fear.
I live over there. I live across the street. Come on, please.
I had one scene with her, if you recall in the film, the scene where we're sitting over the ledge. There's a ledge and there's water underneath it. And we had done like I don't know, more takes than I was getting really upset because, you know, I was hitting it all the time and, you know, she wasn't getting it. So I recall turning to Wes and saying, give me 2 minutes with her. And what happened was I grabbed her and I put her head over the cliff. And I said, if you don't get it right the next time, I'm going to throw you over here. And like Wes will shoot it, and it'll be great footage, and you'll get hurt, and you know they'll call an ambulance, and that'll be that. But you really need to do this because I will throw you over. And she got it on the next take.
Willow, do you have a girlfriend?
Oh, sure. I got lots of girlfriends just waiting to get me.
I don't think you do.
Well, you're right.
And Lucy, on the other hand, was totally open, and she would go anywhere that the scene allowed it to go, and consequently, she really was, you know, she was believable.
The actors really got into it, and I'm not just saying in the obvious, in the violence or in the sex, but for instance, Lucy said something to the younger, more naive girl. There's just you and me here, there's nobody else here, which was totally improvised right on the spot. And it was so moving, so touching.
Just you and me here, nobody else.
Wes was wonderful because when he saw something, he let us go with it. So there was a lot of improv that developed throughout the filming.
As long as we were within the camera and within the frame, we could pretty much do what we wanted.
You know, I would emphasize that I knew very little about how to handle actors.
I don't remember getting any direction from Wes.
The one thing I did do, which I still do, is I would say that you haven't gone far enough. You know, you have to let more out. You have to be more courageous in just letting your emotions out.
He wanted that kind of, documentary, natural. He didn't want a lot of the actors' movements to be structured. He gave us the characters, we worked on them, and kind of let us go. Wes is a very smart guy. I mean, he's not, where he is today is no accident. He's a very good storyteller and he's very smart.
This is not just Wes's film. I mean, Sean had a tremendous input into the film. Don't be under any illusion. They played the perfect role of producer and director, which allowed the actors to play their roles perfectly.
Sean was always there, except when he was out trying to find the cheapest food he could get.
It was sort of like an extended Halloween where we're just running around doing stuff and hoping not to get caught.
And nobody knew what to do. I mean, they didn't know how to kill anybody. They had the mother fighting Jeremy and beating her up and taking her knife and killing her. And I said, wait a minute, this is a doctor's wife. There's no way she's going to beat this street girl in a fight. I said, just let Jeremy hit her, knock her into the bushes, and drop her knife. And then they had this pool on the property that was pitch black. I said, so if we run into the pool, Jeremy could be running away and she'd run right into the pool, and then...
That pool hadn't been cleaned in years. It was so scummy and dirty. I had a blood packet in my shirt, and I also had a thing I had to bite in my mouth. And so as she slashes my throat, I'm supposed to smack my chest, which made the blood come up, and bite the thing that made the blood come out. I remember approaching the violence as it didn't feel violent when we were making it because there were all these people around and it wasn't really scary, and the only scene that really scared me was when we disemboweled one of the girls and then we cut for lunch and they served sausages, and in pulling out the guts, it was condoms and sand and yicky stuff, and I had to pull them out, and I remember thinking, I'm not going to eat meat anymore.
And the funny thing is, I'm responsible for most of those things. I'm the one that showed him how to make intestines by putting rubbers together and then putting blood on them. Well, when she bites my dick off, I'm the one that showed him you put a belt under my pants so she has something to put her teeth on, so it really looks real as opposed to just doing this. The scene where I'm having a nightmare and they come over and they knock my teeth out, that's mine.
Don't move.
I mean, I showed them how to do the chainsaw. I showed them how they could fight without hurting each other. I even told them to go to a Greek restaurant and buy brains for when Junior blows his brains out. But I know when David and Wes go on television, they forget I was there. But, you know, that's okay. Sometimes I wish I could forget I was there. Because as I watched him edit, I thought, my God, this thing is disgusting. No one is ever going to look at this piece of shit. Can I say shit in England? Yeah. Or do you guys say it differently?
You can say it.
And I just thought, no one is going to look at this movie. It sucks.
The original title of the movie was Night of Vengeance. And then we did an advertising campaign. The people that invested in the movie were theater owners from Boston. And they did I think the first advertising campaign they did was Sex Crime of the Century. You know, like, this will work in the drive-ins. Boy, people will really love to see this, and nobody came. We tried another campaign for something called Krug and Company, and it met with very little success. And this fellow named Lee Willis calls me one night, and he was an advertising guy that had worked on the other two campaigns, and said, got an idea for a title, want to try it out in Indiana. I said, what's that? He says, Last House on the Left.
I said, what in the world does that have to do with anything, you know? And Sean said, well, I don't know, this guy's been around, and he says, you know, last, of course, always means like equivalent to death, and house always has a lot of resonance with us because, you know, haunted houses and the house of Aeschylus and everything, you know, it's like it has a resonance of our intellect and our psychological being, and of course, left is always, in heraldry, it's sinister, so it's always suspect, and left-handed people used to be persecuted. So, Last House on the Left, I think it's got a certain ring. I thought it was a terrible idea.
And attached to the title Last House on the Left, he came up with that slogan, it's only a movie, it's only a movie, it's only a movie. And that came from him screening the picture for his wife, who kept going, oh, oh, and he kept saying to her, honey, it's only a movie.
It's only a movie. It's only a movie.
Only a movie. Only a movie. Last House on the Left.
Then I turned on the TV, and there it was. Keep repeating, it's only a movie, it's only a movie. I said, oh, Jesus, nobody's going to go see it, but boy, they sure did.
I know we went up someplace in the Connecticut area to drive in and watched it for the first time, and it was a horrible experience because they played it first. They started it before it was dark. So I was like, Sean, it's playing, Sean, and you can't see a thing on the screen. You know, it was still light out, and people were milling around, getting their Cokes and everything. So about half an hour into the film, you could start to see what was going on. It was like very disillusioning.
You know what really pissed me off? My name wasn't on the poster, but Ada Washington's was. Do you know who Ada Washington is? When they're hitchhiking, and they stop the lady with the chickens in the truck, and she drives off. That's Ada Washington.
I went away. I had another job, and I went up to California, and I called Sean just thinking probably the film had disappeared. And he said, Wes, you sitting down? I said, why? He said, they're lined up around the block.
I mean, it just made bazillions for Hallmark. I mean, just phenomenal box office.
It was a combination of fantastic box office and enormous controversy.
I don't think that we understood at the time how emotionally disturbing the film could be to some people.
You have to understand, this is the first movie that ever actually showed the violence, the cutting, the everything. This movie showed it.
We had reports of people fainting, people having heart attacks, people attacking the projection booth trying to get at the print, theater managers or projectionists making their own cuts.
Funny, we were standing in the foyer, you know, out front, and the 86th Street was an old Loewy's 86th Street, and they would come by, you were bad, I mean, you know, it was just, you know, like if they had tomatoes, they would have thrown them at me.
I had people at the premiere asking for their money back from me.
I mean, I would walk down the street in New York, and these posters would be all over the place, and literally little old ladies would cross the street and go and avoid me.
There was a couple of theaters in Rhode Island where patrons wanted to bomb the theater because the film was too violent.
I guess I wasn't quite prepared for the vehemence and for the approbation, you know, people saying this was the work of the devil. Somebody said it was the most un-American film ever made.
I had a kid tell me she hated my guts, and the mother said, you don't hate her, you hate Sadie, but you don't hate, this is the actress. And the kid said, no, I hate her guts.
The woman I was living with at the time said to some friends at a dinner, and they were mostly academics, you know, Wes has just done directed a film. They, oh, really? What was it? Last House on the Left. And two people got up and left the dinner table. And subsequent to that, most of those people that I knew would not allow me, I noticed, anywhere near their children or alone with their children. And that continued for a long time, of just people looking at you like, you must be a really sick bastard.
And then my family was very upset. I'm from West Virginia, and when it went to my hometown, I think my parents didn't speak to me for a year.
It's very interesting. It's either I'm a very sick bastard or I showed something that people don't like to be shown, which I suspect is what the actual truth is.
In its professional ignorance, its stylistic ignorance, it created its own style and created something that had never been done before.
There's certain things you're not supposed to say or show, and all sorts of mythologies are concocted to enforce that, you know, that this is going to be harmful to children, or this is, I don't know what, but I think it's really, there are certain truths that are so painful and ugly that people don't like them to be aired.
I can go both ways. I can really like it as a semi-documentary, and I can hate it as a gruesome film that I would never let my children see.
I had no idea that what I had done was so violent and scary, and I was upset. I was kind of sorry.
I believe it's important, certainly in the area of violence. I think the more you know about violence, the more you can walk away from it or won't be attracted to it. The more it's glamorized, the more it's shown to be kind of a glib solution to things. And people walking away heroically, you know, the one-shot Western hero. I think the more that people up there, you know, in government or whatever can say, go do that, you'll be a hero, you know, and you come back shattered. So I don't regret anything I did.
And the father tells the mother, wait for the rain, wait for the rain. And the road leads to nowhere.
The fact that it is banned in England, yes, it did surprise me because it's only a movie, we would say.
Censorship is done out of a lack of knowledge for no other reason.
Well, England, I thought you were ahead of us. Guess you're not.
Who is to say what's right or wrong? I don't agree with censorship. I think it's terrible.
Actually, I wish it would have been banned in the United States, to be honest with you.
I don't think anybody can look at that film and say, I'm going to go out and do that. That's really cool. You know, it's so uncool, everything that happens in that movie.
And I just hope that something good will come of that movie, that it won't influence anyone to do anything violent, that it'll maybe shine a bad light on violence. And I hope nobody ever does anything bad because of me. That would make me very sad.
I would hope that somebody would see that and say, oh my God, I hope I never ever do anything approaching that.
I don't hold to the view that people that go in to watch horror films commit the same acts that are being committed in the film because they're driven to do that. I think you have there's always a lot of deviant, well, not a lot, but there's always deviation or deviants that will go and they'll see a film and they'll do something, but that doesn't necessarily relate to the film, that relates to them personally.
I don't go back and watch that film, you know, but I think it certainly deserves the right to exist for people to choose to see if they want to.
Well, I still thought it was a piece of shit. I thought it was absolutely horrible.
I read recently in a book on Last House that Fred lists that as the one movie, the one thing he's ashamed of in his life.
Probably about 80 girls got raped after that movie came out. Not something to be proud of.
Yeah, great. So he's making porno films. That's not harmful to society? You know, fucking and sucking on the screen all the time?
My mother never got over that. She got over me doing X-rated movies, but she never got over me doing that one.
Look at his performance. How can you be opposed to him? He took that seriously.
There was something very cold and intuitive about his acting. I think he showed a side of himself, perhaps, or of life, that is very, very hard to see. Very deeply cruel, cold, without emotion during killing. that is disturbing.
Hey, if he's embarrassed by it, that's okay. You know, I mean, he's entitled to whatever way he wants to think.
The one thing that upset me after the movie came out was none of the reviews said we were good actors. They just said, "Oh, the violence is so real, and the bad guys are so real that you find yourself rooting for them." And I thought, it's acting, you idiot. What do you think? You went out and hired 4 psychopaths to do this movie? We're actors. Why don't you say that?
After Last House on the Left, both Wes and I were kind of victimized by our success.
I think it made it almost impossible for me to work in other genres. It took me probably 32 years to get a chance to do something out of the genre.
Nobody was going to hire us to do love stories or comedies or any of the other things that we might have been attracted to at the time.
Where do you go from Krug? Where do you go? What else can you do? You know, I've done a few of the conventions, you know, that all of a sudden you get pulled back into the convention circuit or pulled into the convention circuit. And, you know, I've met Kane Hodder and I've met the Freddy Krueger, which was a takeoff on the Krug role anyway, you know, but with a mask, etc. And it's funny being a super baddie and the only one that doesn't wear a mask. The only one that has a chance for people to see my face. Watch me grow old.
I get people call me every year. "Oh, we're having a convention this year in Detroit. You want to come, Fred?" No, I don't want to come.
And I always think it's going to get so bad that it's finally funny. And I'll see it, and it still hasn't quite made it to so bad that it's good.
It was fun. It was really fun to make it. Because I was sleeping with Lucy and the makeup girl. And that made it all right. That took the violence away from it. See, it's things I can think about now that I'm a little old man.
To have done something 30-some years ago in my life that's still haunting me is something to be proud of. I think only having children beats that.
You know, maybe almost proud at this point. It's like, it's been a long time.
Of course, how many directors or producers can say 30 years later their movie is a cult classic or a regular classic? I mean, you know, it just doesn't happen.
I'll tell you, more than any other film I've made, that's the one that people mentioned as that's the one that really scared me, or that was the best thing you've made, which is unusual. I mean, sometimes I find myself looking at those people and go, wow.
Or I often wonder, why is it that Last House holds up the way it does? Why is it that people seem to be interested in it even 30 years after the fact? And I think that part of it has to do with a raw energy.
It's quite remarkable that a film made 30 years ago for $90,000 with total amateurs at all points is still around and is, you know, being re-released and still has controversy around it. So I think it does have a strength. And I think because it's so raw, you know, it's not dated that much because it's primal. Because it doesn't look away from a very ugly truth. It literally does not look away. It does not cut. It does not fade to black. It just stays until the act plays out, and then you see all the after effects unblinking. And I think many, many people depend on films to blink at a certain point. Last House on the Left does not blink.
Wheels turning, some of the leaves turn round.
Is that okay for you?
That's great. Thank you. Coming together.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Oh, give my love to the Queen.
Gathering cherries off of the ground. And after the rainbow, after the day glows come over you, a bottle of wine and then a waterfall gonna lead you to the dream you knew.